Hi everyone, awesome to see you guys. Welcome to our 10th local supporting local panel. I can't believe it's been 10 weeks. Like, I feel like it's been, I don't know, this whole thing's been going on for a year or something. So at least I feel like I've aged a couple of years in the last 10 weeks. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you again for joining in, and for everyone else who's going to watch the replay later on. But a special thank you to Steve and Paul, who are our business brokers. And I'm really excited about this conversation because we had people like Nigel and Matt come from the chamber, and they talk really high level, and they go, here's the dream, and follow our vision. But with Steve and Paul, we have the people who are actually working in the landscape, in the business landscape. So welcome, Paul and Steve.
Thank you very much.
Both. So Steve, you work for Link Business Brokers, and Paul, you are the director of Tabak, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit, how long have you guys been doing what you're doing?
Well, I've been involved with business brokering for 12 years. I became a director 10 years ago of the local Tabak business sales. Tabak's been operating since 2000. So we celebrated our 20th birthday in February of this year. And we have 5 offices throughout New Zealand. And we're more of a boutique business sales. We don't have, a couple of hundred listings like, the likes of Link. They're a lot bigger company. We're probably more boutique brokerage. And we're all business owners. And we know what it's like to be there, going to the bank manager, trying to get overdraft facilities or dealing face-to-face with staff, suppliers, customers. So when somebody comes in to see me and they say, yes, they want to sell their business for whatever reason, I can sit there and go, yeah, hey, I know exactly how you feel. Personally, I've owned 5 businesses over the last 30 odd years. So yeah, it's an exciting industry to be in. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So over to you, Steve. Share a little bit about yourself. How long have you been doing this? I feel like I'm a timber guy.
Yeah, thanks. So effectively, my background is actually aviation and logistics. And I came over here 12 years ago and bumbled around, walking up and down the beach, wondering what on earth what I was going to do with myself. I was actually looking for a business to buy. And I sort of fell into actually acquiring Link with a fellow colleague who's now retired. But I started out pretty much the same time as Paul in business broking. 2008 was when I started out. So I acquired 50% of the Link franchise, and then we grew it over the last 10 years, 11 years. And actually I sold the business back to head office about 3 years ago. And I've been running the operation now for them for the last 3 years. So yeah, it's really interesting. I know Paul well, and it's quite interesting because most people in the industry will probably know that we work in different, and we cross over, but we do work primarily in different sectors of the market. Tobacco built up a very, very good reputation over the last 12 years for more of the high-end sector of the market, whereas Link predominantly sell the more of the high volume and lower value businesses. But there is crossover. But yeah, I mean, interesting journey for me, having come from Europe, from an aviation background to selling small businesses in New Zealand over the last 12 years. So we operate with a team of 15 brokers here, and I've got 9 offices throughout the country. Yeah, love it. I've been in business myself since I was 24, sold and bought my own businesses, and it's just one of those industries I absolutely love. Every day is different. You meet some amazing, really amazing, good, honest people. And there's nothing better than helping people with their dreams, whether it's either getting in or out of businesses.
So fabulous. Thank you guys for sharing your guys' stories. Paul, I did read in your LinkedIn profile that you own or part owner of a Subway.
Oh yeah, my background originally was in banking, and then I went into owned a holiday park. Did that for 18 years, and then sold that and decided, what am I going to do? So I actually came to town and went to Tabak's and said, I want to buy a business. and they actually couldn't find one for me. So I went to end up buying a Subway restaurant in Matamata.
So you're still on the Subway?
No, I sold it a couple of years ago. I helped the manager who had worked for me
Sure.
for 10 years. I helped her into the business. I mean, the last thing I ever wanted was a sandwich, to make sandwiches. In fact, I never made a sandwich. I think I'm the only franchisee in New Zealand that never actually made, or Subway franchisee that never actually made a sandwich.
So it's not a sandwich maker, right? It's a sandwich artist. We need to get
sandwich artist. You're dead right. Yes. So I owned that for about 10 years, I think, and it was great to be able to set up the manager so that she could come in, because it was her lifelong ambition to own a Subway. And so we got out of there about 2-3 years ago. Because for me, it was more an investment rather than just a business.
You'd be probably quite glad right now that you are not under COVID-19 operating a Subway, right?
And also a holiday park.
And a holiday park. But let's go into the landscape now. Like, so Bay of Plenty, what are you seeing happen? Oh, yes, Tony?
I was just going to make a comment that both of you, got into what you're doing right now 12 years ago, but not knowing what the hell you're going to do.
Yep.
And then both looking to buy a business.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to do. I want to do something that I can grow, and so you end up actually working within the business, helping others to try and get their businesses and making their dreams happen. So
I mean, for that came about for me is when I arrived here, not knowing anybody or anything about the economic landscape of the Bay of Plenty. I realised pretty quick that the employment opportunities from large corporate infrastructure in Tauranga just didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity was to either start a business from scratch or to buy an existing business. And I looked at the statistics of failure rates in New Zealand of startups, and it's pretty horrific. And soon realised there was an opportunity. I looked at the future of New Zealand with regards to baby boomers, and at the time there wasn't an abundance of business brokers in town. There's a lot more now. But it just seemed a profession that lent for me from a business background. But great industry, absolutely amazing industry to be in.
So from that start, because back then GFC would have hit.
Yes.
That would have been a good time to start. And I guess sorry, Pauline, I'm going to lead the question into the landscape of going from when you started to over the last 12 years, how the landscape in Tauranga has changed to where you see it right now, pre and post COVID. So I guess let's start with you, Paul.
Actually, it's a good question, because when I first started was 2008, and the GFC was just kicking in, and so we saw a lot of damage back then. Businesses coming to the market that had previously been, very, very good businesses, and all of a sudden they were in big pain, and having to sit there and go through the meeting with a business owner and say, hey, look, I don't think your business is saleable, because there are a certain percentage of them that weren't saleable. Where I see it slightly different now is that interest rates are a lot lower than they were back in 2008. Back in 2008, post GFC, the banks weren't lending money at all. And so anybody that wanted to buy a business would go to the bank, and the bank would just sit there and say no. So I see that slightly different to where we are today. The banks are being told, or so we're being told, that the banks are open for business. Let's wait and see. We're seeing second tier lenders coming through with lending, which is good. And also, I think the business owners who are going to the market are going to have to start looking at things like vendor finance, and also being based on an earn-out of some sort as to what the business will achieve in the next 12 months or 2 years. So there are similarities, but there are also differences, and I think mainly the finance side of it is going to be different. The other part that we're going to look at, which will be different, is that we used to look at the historical performance of the business. Now it's going to be based on, well, where's your future maintainable earnings, and what does that look like? Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. Totally agree with Paul. Effectively,
I told you not to agree with each other.
No, I know we quite often agree with each other.
It's so true. I mean, historically, business brokers value businesses on historical trading performance of businesses, and the only reason we do that, it gives us an understanding or expectation of what the future maintainable earnings of our business is going to be. So that's the foundation of what we do, and we're in a completely different landscape right now. That there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of unknowns. But we absolutely have to, it's all around risk, effectively. Risk management around any business right now is going to be asking, what does post-COVID look like for your business? And I think we need to be very careful, I said this last week, about brandishing certain industries into good industries or death industries. It's just not the case. There will be many, many very successful tourism operators that thrive and survive through this, and the same with hospitality. So every individual business has to be respected for its individual merits. But the most important thing is that anybody looking to sell their business right now has got to address a COVID plan. Banks will not lend money unless the existing business can prove its way through this. And buyers would be very foolish to enter into contracts without giving thorough due diligence to what post-COVID looks like. So big focus and big emphasis on everybody, banks, brokers, buyers and sellers, on thinking, what does the future next 6 months and 12 months look like? And that's going to play out hugely, because interest rates are low, that's great, but it means nothing if banks aren't lending. And banks will only lend money if they can identify and eliminate risk, mitigate risk from a lending opportunity.
So from your experience, gentlemen, do the banks expecting just the figures, the financial side of things, or do they expect more of a product development or pivoting, or what is actually measured in the way of, like, I understand there will be cash flows and all of that, but what else are they asking for?
Well, when a bank looks at a proposal, it's going to be so much more about who is the person that's buying this business? What skills do they bring to the table? Do they know anything about the industry at all? So there's going to be a lot of commentary about the person, and like Stephen said, about the business and what their plan is post-COVID. And also what we're going to be looking for is, we're going to say to a business owner, we want to see your top 10 clients from last year, how much they spend, and then how safe are those 10 clients going forward? Because your business might be okay, but what about your suppliers, or what about your customers? And so it'd be a combination of the projected financial performance, commentary around who your customers are, who your suppliers are, and also about the skills that the purchaser will bring to the business. And I mean, I can remember back in my banking days, which was, hey, that was 40 years ago. Basically,
hiding your age, Paul. Hiding your age.
Yeah, I know. The old head's going a bit bald too.
Oh yeah, right.
It was basically, back in those days, it was, well, if you've got security, then that's fine. And you had these people that were going into businesses and they were not suitable. They were not good operators. And I mean, I'm talking, hey, pre-1987. So I'm going back to that time. And but banks sometimes didn't learn the lessons. And I believe 87 was similar. There were the banks prior to, 2007. Early 2000s, the banks were running around lending money to people or to businesses. And in some cases, not all, but in some cases, the person that was owning that business was totally unsuitable to it. And I think there's going to be a lot of commentary around making sure that the purchaser is fit for the business.
So I've got a question in regards to the changes in how society and people are operating to business sales, right? So you say you look a lot at historical data and what the business has done before, how suitable the buyers and all of that. But how much emphasis, when you sell a business or in the purchase price as well in the bank, do you have on, say, pivoting into a digital product, or changing in the changes in the landscape, that we no longer you know, we are much more entrepreneurial and much more global thinking these days than we were 10, 12 years ago. So is that taken into consideration at all when a business sells?
Stephen, did you?
Yeah. Effectively, I mean, the model of businesses has changed over the years. You know, if you go back 20, 30, even 40 years ago, you know, the structure of a business, it was either providing a service or a product, and it was pretty straightforward. You probably find that 90% of your clientele was domestic, and the fact that your supply chain probably came from a wholesaler, and there might be two main importers into the country. And we're a much more global economic you know, environment at the moment, where people can expand and open and import themselves and control their own finances and all sorts of things. So the accessibility for business and growth is much, much better. The restrictions, and there's very limited restrictions on business owners these days and what they want to do and where they want to take it. And there are many, many successful, really successful New Zealand businesses that do not go offshore and they do not expand. And that's purely a desire of the owner.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the opportunities for business to target. Having said that, you know, people will not be flying around the world probably for at least another couple of years, realistically. And that's my personal view. But freight.
You're just bursting my Europe bubble.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to start getting used to it. And I know we're all talking about, you know how fantastic New Zealand has been as controlling COVID and the potential of a, you know, trans-Tasman bubble. That's all great. The reality of it is, until a vaccine is found, that international travel people will be very, very limited. And we need to understand that we're probably going to be operating as a domestic economy for some time. So that business really right now need to start adapting and thinking. And you might think that, you know, I said it last time, you know, a little cafe in Matamata is not going to be impacted by international tourism. The reality of it is there might be a cafe where a tourist bus stops through on the way to Hobbittown for international tourists, and 80% of their clientele is that. So every single business needs to look very carefully about where their revenue has come from historically and where the revenue is going to be coming from in the next 12 and 24 months. And they may need to adapt and adopt in order to, you know, continue on to trade successfully. Every business can control OPEX, operating expenses, to a degree. What you cannot control always is where the revenue is coming from. So I'd be advising business to think very, very carefully and think hard about if they need to adapt and how they need to change over the next period to survive and thrive. Because there will be some huge and amazing success stories at the back of this, not only doom and gloom.
We're already seeing them. Like, we've been sharing every week. We've been sharing a good story. We have so many incredible stories here in New Zealand. It's just a pleasure to watch. But how do you guys, so let's go like Bay of Plenty wide, right? We're back 2 weeks operating. We just spoke just briefly before this started. Like, I went to lunch today on a Wednesday, and I had to wait for half an hour for a table, like absolutely flat out. So yes, you are right. You have to look business by business. But can you give us a little bit of a view of what does from your perspective, the landscape look like in the Bay of Plenty? Is there a lot of businesses selling and shutting down, or, you know, like more than usual? What does it look like? Paul?
Well, I think the Bay of Plenty, Taonga in particular, is we have our own micro economy here. We've got kiwi food, which is going great. We've got the port. We've got construction. So, you know, Taonga is still booming. It's a great place to live. So we've got a population of people that want to move here. We've got an abundance of buyers. Okay, we've got people coming back from overseas. We've got people moved down from Auckland over the last period. So as far as our economy here is, I think we're doing very, very nicely. Are there going to be some people that are going to hurt? Absolutely. There's certain sectors that are going to hurt. Great to hear that people are back into the restaurants, but I still believe there's going to be some cafe owners out there that unfortunately are going to hurt big time. There is going to be some hurt in the hospitality industry and tourism industry, but that's going to be New Zealand wide. But the good thing is, from a tourism point of view, a lot of our tourism is domestic. based.
Yeah.
We're not, from an international point of view, we're not in Auckland, Rotorua, Christchurch, Queenstown. So our tourism industry, our holiday parks, a lot of that is domestic, so they're not going to hurt quite as much. Are they going to, motels going to hurt? Yeah, absolutely. So those are the negative ones, but the positive ones, we've got so much happening here. And I think a lot of our tradies, for example, at the moment, they are flat stick. Sure, they're in catch-up mode. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2021. If the land doesn't become available, our housing could slow down. But then again, we're still a popular place to live. There's still going to be people coming here. So I actually think we're in a really good place. We've got a business that we're selling to a strategic buyer at the moment. And his biggest problem during level 4 lockdown was he's an essential service. He couldn't get staff to work. He had his best April ever. So there are certain businesses around our area who are doing very, very nicely. So I think there's going to be some negative, but I think a lot of it is positive.
I think if you look around the world and look at economies, either whether small economies and everything else, and you look at New Zealand as a country, and then you look at Bay of Plenty as a region, and we're in a very, very, very good position compared to a lot of people. Yeah. So yeah, and as Paul said, there is going to be some hurt. And look, people in business will know, there's pains through it, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And sometimes you need to tighten your belt and pull up your trousers, and that's what people are having to do. And the good ones will survive. They'll get through it, and they'll find ways, and they'll come out the other side. We all know 100%. Everyone on this call knows that COVID will not last forever. Like any downturn in the economy, we will pull back. It's just adapting and all working together as a community and a business community to help us to get through it. So it will happen.
Well, part of, I guess, moving forward, when you're valuing businesses or looking at cash flow and stuff, but this blip that's been, everyone's gone through it. Well, obviously that's going to be taken into account.
Yeah.
What I guess is the valuation process, because there's multiple ways to value a business, and obviously different multipliers that we can apply.
Yeah.
Do you see that going to change at all in the future? What's the best way moving
Well, I
forward?
think I've been having discussions all week about it. And one thing, a lot of us don't know the answer right now as to what impact. And we're all fully aware of the health situation in this country, but none of us actually know of what impact is going to happen on the economy. We haven't come up through that phase yet. So effectively, at the moment, we've got historical 3 years of trading performance of businesses, and we don't categorically know what the trading performance or future maintainable earnings is going to be. So we've got to go through a whole risk analysis, every business, and a vendor's got to work through with their accountant and advisors to say, here's a couple of scenarios of where my business might be in 6 months and 12 months and 18 months. But absolutely, there will be some corrections in business values. And that's because, despite what banks say, they are being a lot more careful with their lending. And the other factor is that, we cannot deny that there's going to be some very much concerned people about the economy going forward. Business confidence is going to take a knock. And when you throw into the mix and potential banks tightening up a bit and a lack of business confidence, not to say it doesn't mean sales won't transact, there's just more loopholes to go through. And that's not a bad thing. Risk analysis is what you do when you buy and sell businesses. And that's what valuations are based on. You can take 3 years of historical trading, that just gives you an indication of what you expect the business to do. But if you throw into the mix a COVID situation where we don't know, and that's the same, if you've got 3 years of trading and you've got one customer that's provided 70% of that revenue, and you tell me that that customer's not going to be there next year, then there's going to be adjustment in value, just the same. So it's all about future maintainable trading performance of the business.
Yeah, totally agree.
You guys shared that Paul, you shared that there's abundance of buyers coming back from overseas.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about those buyers. Are they already seasoned business owners who want to be business owners? Are they employees who are entrepreneurs who are deciding to go into something different? What's the what's the type of person who's looking to buy a business at the moment in the Bay of Plenty?
Okay, it's across the board. I mean, you know, I had a call last week from a Qantas pilot who has been put out of work. He had a rental property here, so he's come back. He wants to buy a business. And then we've got a lot of people from the corporate sector who've come back, and they're saying, hey, yeah, I'm in my mid-40s, and if I don't go into business now, I probably will never. Everybody, you know, there's so many people being put out of work. And generally that's what we're seeing is people who have been put out of work, and they've decided, well, I'm going to now take the leap, go into my own business rather than be at the mercy of my boss or that business. So yeah,
have you seen a change in the demographic, or like do you think that at COVID-19 there is like, you know, more people who've just been unemployed or of domestic, or do you think the landscape or the demographic stayed the same throughout this process?
We've always had those people on our books, but we're just seeing so many more of them. I don't think it's changed at all. Because it doesn't matter whether you're on a low-paid job, they're still looking for smaller valued businesses, or whether it's multi-million-dollar transactions. Stephen?
It's interesting because in 26 years of operation, Link has had the last 3 months the highest number or level of inquiries on businesses we've had. And I'm sure other brokers have experienced the same. There are a lot of people, not only people that are unemployed, there are people in corporate roles at the moment that do not want to be in this position of being beholden and potentially made redundant. And now's the time they're thinking about it. But here's the thing. If you take any business, any person in the market now looking to buy a business, they are going to need some form of cash to put into the deal. Even if banks borrow money, even if they do vendor financing, they are still going to need to find some form of cash. Now, a lot of people that have been made unemployed and maybe burnt through some equity or on low wages don't have access to realistically $40,000, $50,000 absolute minimum to put into a deal. So what we're saying to people is that, you know, to get involved in business, there have to be sacrifices sometimes. You've got to move potentially 1 or 2 steps back to go forward. So if you tell me that you haven't got $50,000 right now to invest into a business, you're going to struggle to find somewhere, because it's unlikely that unless the vendors are really strapped, that they're going to be offering 100% finance, even on earnouts. So there are options for people, you know, and they can downgrade their car. They can sell a toy or two or a boat. They can potentially downgrade their house and release some equity. I know it's tough to think about doing that, but if you really want to get involved and get ahead in life, those are the sort of things you've got to start considering, unless you've got, you know, disposable cash available to put into a business. So those are the sort of tough decisions people are having to make in order to move forward and get ahead in life.
Yeah, we've also seen a lot of people who've got cash. They've had it in the banks, and the banks are now paying next to nothing in interest. Yeah. And so they're saying, hey, we want to now go and get into a business because we don't want the money in the bank. The share market, we're uncertain there. Commercial property, well, we're not sure what's going to happen there. Yep. So they're now looking at investing into businesses. And we've got people who are coming to me saying, Paul, I've got this chunk of cash. Can you find somebody else who will come in and as a shareholder? And so it might be someone who comes in as a manager. He might be able to come up with 25% of the amount of the business. And we have a silent, almost mentor there who will come up with the other 75%. So I did a couple of deals last year, exactly that. Where
so you've almost got a syndication of business owners like you do with commercial property.
Yep.
And that works really well, obviously, with managed businesses. I mean, the perfect scenario, if you're an investor, I mean, historically, you can put it under the mattress, you can put it in the bank and get a couple of %, you can put it in a commercial building right now, even if it's not, you know, paying reasonable 4 or 5%. The reality of it is, if you find a good, solid, managed business that ticks all the boxes and does the due diligence, you know, you're potentially looking at 25 to 30% return on investment pre-tax and depreciation. And that's, you know, knocking socks off, unless you want to go into startups and venture capitalists. It's very good. And that's exactly as Paul said, a lot of people now who are looking at retirement are not looking at commercial office blocks because the future may change with that landscape. And it's a very, very good opportunity. There are a lot of very good businesses in New Zealand.
So have you both seen an increase in those that are, you know, those that are listing or those that want to sell?
It's funny, the number of airline pilots are phoning up. It's quite interesting.
Oh, really?
So a question for both of you. From your experience, what would be the 3 top qualities for the business owner to have and succeed in the business? So I'm looking for a specific answer from which of you. The 3 top qualities.
I'll start off and give one, and Paul can give 1 or 2. For me, the biggest quality any owner of a business can have is recognizing and acknowledging that their biggest asset is their staff.
Great. To me, it's people skills. Being able to manage customers, staff, and suppliers. You can have the greatest technical skills, but if you can't talk to people and get on with them, you know, you're going to find it very, very difficult to succeed. So to me, it's the personality and the people skills of that purchaser.
Yeah. It's so true. We tell, I mean, the business brokers that work for me, you know, I always say to them when they're going out and pitching for business, and be mindful that vendors talking to other brokerage firms, is that forget corporate literature, forget the rates that we charge, the size of the business, everything else. You've got to walk out of that meeting and say, do you get a genuine feeling that that person liked you? And did you get on? Did you create a relationship? And you're halfway there. And if you can't do that, if you can't connect with people, and in business, that's what it's about. You know, we're on screens now, but we're still interacting and communicating with each other. That's what it's about.
And what's
Valerie, I'll add another one to that.
On number 3 we're looking for.
From a business owner's perspective, is to put the mission and the vision in place, and then get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Give it the staff, give it the responsibility, and as a business owner,
truly spoken like a creator. So, like Tony, like that does not surprise me that you say that I'm going to create the vision, and when I get out of the way, sometimes it's just not quite like that.
Oh, of course not, but you know,
But
it takes a long time to get out the way.
But Paul will agree with this, because I know, is the fact the biggest thing that we say to owners is the most important thing is to remove yourself from the business.
Yes.
Because if you can do that,
when I work with my clients, I always say that your team or your business is only as successful as it is without you.
Exactly.
And so I've made like this. I've made a career out of making myself redundant. Hence, I ended up being a business consultant, because in every management role, my first goal was how can I streamline the team and be efficient in the team that they can operate without me. Which is a great business model when you're a business owner. Not so great when you're actually a manager or a team leader. Trust me.
the other thing that I find, you know, when a business owner comes into me and we're talking about it, and they say, oh, I want to go into business because, you know, it appears that it's going to instantly make them rich, and they're going to be able to play golf once a week because, you know, they've seen this other guy being able to do that. And I sit down and say to them, hey, look, you're probably going to work your butt off.
Yep.
You know, and in your corporate job, you might have been in charge of one department, but when you're in your business, you are the operations manager, you are the finance department head, you are the marketing, everything. You are all of them, and you're overseeing the whole lot. And especially people coming from a corporate, they seem to think that they're experts in the whole lot, and I advise them, get a good team around you, and so they're experts in those fields, and you're the captain, but listen to all of those. Don't think that you can do everything, because there's no embarrassment for asking for help, and that I think is a. And the one other thing that I heard, that I got this from my Subway days, I went and did a 2-week Subway course in Brisbane, and they told us about all these things that you can do when you go into your store. And the trainer said, right, are you all set to go back to your stores on Monday and make all these changes? And we all went, yes. And he said, no. He said, don't change a thing. He said, go in there, get the staff on your side, and then over a period of about 3 months or 4 months, implement small changes. He said, because if you go in there on day one and you change everything, he said, it's not a good look. And I think that's very important for a purchaser as well, to get in there and learn it with the staff.
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners, and I see this when I help with mergers and scaling down businesses, like especially, let's talk like for a second here, restructures in businesses, right? I see so many business owners who go and say, right, I need to cut my salaries. I'm going to make this person and this redundant. And I'm like, why? Why are you making these two people redundant? And when it goes with like, I don't know, I don't like them, or they're always lazy, or they're always late, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but what role or what function are they actually performing in your business? And a business owner believes always that they know everything about the business, even though they sit at the top. And it's like, guess what? Your staff members or your team members will be the ones who will guess much quicker if you're going to be out of business or not, because they are on the cold forefront, talking to the clients, talking to the suppliers, right? Making the revenue go round and round and round in circles. And I think a lot of business owners forget that. A lot of business owners, they go, this is, like, I know it all. And I'm like, do you really know it all? Because when they go and make the changes and they're like, oh, this didn't work because of X, Y, and Z. I'm like, have you had a conversation with your team about it?
Buyers coming in are buying businesses and making immediate changes like you're discussing is it's simple. It's commercial suicide. You've paid goodwill for the business based on what it is. Leave it alone, let it run, watch the people, watch the staff, learn the customers, understand the suppliers, understand the operations, sit back, right? And then when the time is right and it's appropriate, start making changes. But yeah, I see it too often. It's commercial suicide. And we get businesses back here on the market within 6 months because they've destroyed it.
Would that change relate to risk minimization, right? Risk management. Looking at back, okay, where are the risks in this business? Where do I need to plug the holes? Where those changes need to be? Where are the low-hanging fruit changes versus, okay, we're going to change location, we're going to change staff. Those are massive changes.
The thing is, Tony, it's very difficult to really know a business until you're actually in it, working in it. And, due diligence and reading from information memorandum and a few meetings and stuff, only when you actually get in there will you actually find out what the business is.
It's like that old story about, if you purchase the business that's been selling pies and you walk in and you start selling cakes and you're wondering why there are no customers. Well,
I love hospitality.
Not paying me goodwill for it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the due diligence before you buy a business it doesn't happen overnight. So you get that process to understand the market before you.
I also recommend that before you buy a business, you mystery shop in the business. Like, there is so much to be won being a customer of that business and checking out what the process is. How do they make the customer feel, right? Like, what's the end result before buying a business? Like, it speaks volumes.
I think you should do that as the business owner right now.
Yes.
Before you put it on the market, before you sell it.
I mystery shop all my clients. So when I work with a business owner, I don't pre-warn them. I just go. One of my team members goes and mystery shops, and based on that we identify so many issues you need to resolve, and the high qualities they have. So it goes both ways. It doesn't go only just one way.
Can we touch really quickly on the side of things where you're preparing your business for sale? So what steps would you suggest to take if somebody is thinking, I actually need to sell this business? And what would you normally advise? Because some businesses aren't ready for market tomorrow because there are issues. So what are those issues as a rule from your experience?
First of all, you must understand that any sensible owner, in order to exit from business, must have done some pre-planning. Unfortunately, it's very sad to say that majority of businesses don't do enough pre-planning for an exit strategy, but you need to get your affairs in order. And by that, I mean everything from contracts to suppliers to employment agreements to literally having your accountant go through and prepare normalized accounts for the purpose of sale, which a lot of vendors don't want to pay for. You are investing. Getting your business ready for sale, preparing and planning is an investment in your future of your exit. And never underestimate or undermine the value in doing that properly. Engaging with accountants and lawyers and consultants and business brokers as part of your team to get your business ready. So when it goes to market, there literally is almost nothing that anybody can pick up on that's going to make it fall over or devalue your business.
You totally agree. Yeah, in today's world, your sort of work safety, health and safety manuals, all of those things are so important that a business purchaser will walk in there and say, is this all up to date, and can't. And if it's not, it's sending a signal to the purchaser to say, well, this business isn't really prepared to go to the market, or it's not well run if those things aren't up to date. And like Stephen said, you know, your systems and processes, your contracts, nothing worse than a business owner saying to you, oh yeah, I've got a contract with such and such, and then you say, well, where is it? And it expired 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
and they say, well, don't worry, he's a good guy. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. I've known him for 20 years, and he'll continue working with the new owner. Yeah. Well, that doesn't quite work, but it's all comes down also to justifying the value of that intangible asset. That's what it's all about. Is saying to a business owner, you're buying this business because it's a going concern. All of these things are in place. So yeah, Stephen, totally agree with what you were saying. You've got to be prepared. I mean, and you're probably the same. We've worked with business owners for years, getting them to that stage of, right, this is what you've got to do. I mean, I sold a business last year and I'd worked with them for 8 years. Each year I used to go back to him and value his business. And it was, oh, not quite right yet, Paul, not quite ready. And then finally it was ready. But during that time, we had everything. He knew that he had to have the financials all sorted. And he knew, because I told him, take out the wife's car and your son's car and the cell phones that are paid by the company for your kids and all of that sort of thing. And he was amazed at how much it worked out. And it was all in the expenses, hidden in the expenses, but that just comes off the value.
Some owners can't even identify their own discretionary expenses going through the books because it's all very murky, and there's no pre-planning. They've got side businesses intertwined with this business, and no pre-thought of how the buyer's going to determine what that is when they come to buy it. So you've got to make it squeaky clean. So absolutely, lawyers love it, banks and accountants and consultants and financiers just love what they're looking at.
I had a look at a business in another part of the country that was for sale, and I was looking at the numbers, and on the P&L items it had residential property income.
Yep.
It's like, oh, fantastic. Do I get do I get a house with the purchase price?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Well, I've got income from the residential property increase, so surely.
proper careful planning. You cannot underestimate. But there's horror stories that go around that. You know, vendors will disclose asset schedules as part of the sale, and he's forgotten to remove his X5 BMW. Comes settlement. You know, the buyer's looking for where the BMW is. You cannot miss. You cannot put enough time and process and planning into making sure that your business is actually really, really ready for sale. And then you've got all sorts of different questions. You know, do you engage the staff or don't you? You know, there's all these different. And every business is different. Believe me.
So have you guys seen an increase over the last few months of listings?
No, so listing for us personally, listing because of COVID, we're only now just starting to picking up on listings. But yeah, I mean, listings are picking up. You got decisions for people that were deciding to sell their business before COVID. Now the decision is: do they continue with that process of wishing to sell their business, or do they hunker down and ride this out for another year or 18 months or whatever it's going to take, and then come back to the market? I suppose the question is the market, or what is the market going to do for adjustments in valuations of businesses? Even though you might be able to prove through projections future maintainable earnings, my business's customers are going to stay, there's nothing untoward that's going to affect the value of my business. That's great, but the fact of the matter is business confidence will be down. Okay, lending might be tighter, and there will be a perception out there that there's going to be some adjustments.
Yeah, this time of the year is normally when people have just got their 31st of March figures back, and that's when they're sitting down with their accountants and deciding, okay, is this a good time for us to go to the market? So it's sort of been delayed a little bit because of COVID, but the phones in the last probably couple of weeks have started ringing again from vendors. Unfortunately, I've had to have those conversations with some people saying, look, I'm sorry, but I don't think your business has got a value. Whereas possibly pre-COVID, it probably did. But yeah, I think it will start, the phone has sort of started. I think it will start moving forward. We actually listed 2 businesses during COVID, or I did, because I worked with people and their accountants have got their financials back to them in late April, and they decided pre-COVID to go to the market anyway. So we just carried on.
But there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
And I guess going back to that syndication perspective you brought up before, as business owners, are they actually looking at, I don't want to sell the whole thing, but I might look at bringing on new partners and new investors and new shareholders? Are people going to you guys for that as well?
Yeah, we did one last.
Options?
Yeah, it depends on every business. Is individual, obviously,
Correct.
and it depends on the circumstances of the business owner. And it depends on why they are selling the business. Is it because of death or disease or divorce, or the bank? Are they putting pressure on? Or is it their own decision because they're going to retire? Or they want, they've been in the business for 20 years, so they want to sell the business, or whatever reason. And it depends on that reason as to their motivation to sell.
Well, just thinking as well, because it might be, well, the banks aren't lending me the money. How do I get at a partnership in? I don't know anyone. Do I go to you guys?
You come and have a conversation with us. Yeah. And there's certain businesses where that option is, where a vendor's prepared to stay on for the next 3 years and have a partnership or shareholding change with an incoming partner. But every situation is certainly different.
I think you will start to see more earn-out formulas and potential deferred payments and vendor finance. It's all mitigating risk. That's all it's doing.
Yep.
In today's market, people are looking to protect and put a blanket around risk. But retiring vendors at the moment, they would be saying traditionally, normally, a retiring vendor would take his $1 million or a couple of $1 million out, and he might go invest some of it in a commercial property, whatever it is. But at the moment, they're starting to look at other opportunities. I mean, there's risk involved. For example, if a vendor sells for a couple of $1 million and he says, I don't want to outright sell, I'm going to bring a partner in, I'm going to bring a manager in, 50-50, you can pay in $1 million, you can run the show, I'll pay your salary. And guess what? The business is making $400,000 or $500,000 profit. I'm going to get a dividend of 50% of that each year, and that's 6-7 times what I get in the bank. Sounds great. Okay, nice and easy. I know the guy, I trust him, we get on well, the business is in a really good position, and I'm going to be getting 7 or 8 times what I'm going to be getting from a commercial building in a bank. It all sounds great, and then one day COVID comes along, right? And that changes the whole landscape, and now that guy's potentially looking at losing. If that business went bust, he's going to be losing not only his return, but his whole investment of his $1 million. So it just depends where people are in their lives around appetite for risk and what they want the money for.
I mean, I brought it up last week when we were talking to the banks and around that minimizing risk versus and borrowing, putting our house up as business owners for the initial seed capital or the funding. Even if we bootstrap it, banks still want guarantees and houses and assets. And as we grow, and as the housing market gets up, and my kids can't afford to buy a house, but they want to start up a business, but they've got, they might have Paul and Steve as their business advisors on their advisory group, and they've got some really good business acumen come from Paulina and Valerie on the accounting side. So they've got a really good backing and team. So the risk is actually minimised that their business should be successful. versus someone that's come out, has no idea, has no team, has no qualifications whatsoever.
Yeah.
So do you think there would be, and this is a long-term trend, that the risk management of that will change to look at what the individual skill set of the business owner and the teams they have around you?
Well, absolutely, but also from a bank's point of view, they're a lot more comfortable to lean to a manager that's going to buy into the business or someone who has experience in there. To me, the risk management is all about the experience or the skill set that that person will bring to that business.
And I guess it's from a startup perspective too. If you're going to start a business up, or you've had that experience in previous life, and now you're 40, 50 years old, and you want to do something stupid like start your own business, sell one and start another one.
Open a cafe. That seems to be every 40-year-old does. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just gonna go in hospitality because it's gonna make me quick money.
I thought we all went into business broken.
Every time, all that. But every time I had $1 for meeting a business owner in hospitality, because that's what I specialize in, who said, I'm like, why did you join hospitality? And they go, the cafe was running well. I wanted to make good money or quick money. And I'm like, okay, I still don't see the reason why you're going into hospital. Keep going. Like,
I like to drink.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? Hospitality is everything but easy, right? And easier money.
Timer for everyone. So from the accountancy point of view, so that's why structuring our affairs is very important, and for people who are watching. So when we're talking about, there's rental property in the business and all of that. So it is suggested for every business activity you start new company, ultimately it might be a little bit more costly, but at the same time, when you do anything with the business, what you have to do really, you have to think 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. If I'm truly successful in this business and in 5 years' time I want to exit, how will it look? Will it be looking good? Was the rental in it or not? Not to mention the compliance side of things where you have to separate GST-able, non-GST-able activities. So structure is very important. And the second one, when Tonya was mentioning about selling off the shares, so please make sure you got your accountants, because there's taxation issue might pop up when we've got a major change in shareholding. Long words like imputation credits and stuff like that. So, but make sure that a professional again reviewed that side of things for you as well. So just a little note from me.
What I wanted to just add to, and Paul and Steve, you alluded to it as well, is like when you sell a business, you're going, okay, what does the exit strategy look like? I encourage every business owner and every buyer of a business to go and say, okay, why did I buy this business? What's my end goal, and how is this business going to take me there? So from the day you are like, and I know that a lot of businesses don't do this, but from the day you start your business, and in New Zealand, businesses start from the fun of it. Let's do it and see where it takes us 90% of the time. But when you actually buy a business, you really need to go and say, okay, what is it's just a business is an investment. It's a vehicle to get you to your end goal. So what's that end goal, and how long before you want to get there, and how do you want to get there, right? Do you want to do this by managing the business yourself all the time, by getting someone in? Like, really think about the end in mind before you go out there and spend the millions on a business which is running.
Because I think it's interesting, because the definition of what is a quality business, it is a different meaning to every different business owner. I mean, the expectations from normal people that a quality business is big, it makes a lot of money. That's not necessarily the case. Quality business is what it produces of what the owner's aspirations are. It might be working 3 days a week, or it might be having the opportunity to do international travel, or it might be a whole range of things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the next incoming buyer has the same aspirations and goals of you. So you've got to think about what your aspirations, goals for that business are, and what a new buyer would want from that business. Because just because it produces a small profit and enables you to travel and work 3 days a week, that's not necessarily going to be the ideal situation when you try and sell the business to an incoming owner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. You go, Paul.
Yeah, totally agree. Both Paulina and Steve. Business owners, when they go into a business, should be looking at what their exit strategy is straight away, and as part of their business plan. should be saying, well, yes, we're going to be, where do we want to be in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? And how, if we want to exit, how are we going to exit? What is the plan? Is that to bring, my son along and to join the business or whatever it might be? But at least have that discussion so that they know where they're going to and where they want to get to.
And
So I agree with both comments.
So many businesses, and we have to untwine so much stuff that shouldn't be needed to be done. For example, any business should be really ready. We have a lot of businesses for sale under force majeure. And like Paul said, it could be matrimonial, it could be health, it could be financial pressures. And you can't untwine the last 3 years of mess. So always be thinking at any time and any day, your business could be up for sale for a number of reasons. And is it presentable and is it ready for the market right now? Because trying to remove a second business from a joint thing is a very messy thing.
And one of the exit strategies, or could be to have no exit strategy, that the fact is that it's going to give me an income. I've just paid myself a job. I'm happy. It's going to keep me going until I'm 50, 60, whatever it is. And if I have to wind it up, I have to wind it up. If that's the decision that business owner that you want to make, that's fine. But that's got to be your strategy and have all the compliance.
You need to be clear on it. Yes, absolutely. Be clear on what is the end goal from, because there's plenty, like tradies do this, right? Like you see so many electricians and builders who go, I'm just going to go on my own and I'm going to work for as long as I can, and then when I'm done, I just finish the business, right? Great. If that's your strategy and that's your focus, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. But don't. The biggest danger, and Steve mentioned this at the beginning, the biggest danger is not to pre-plan, not to pre-think and do your due diligence and really be clear on what is the outcome you're trying to achieve with that business, because you're going to go belly up.
Even small business owners, really small business owners, I'm talking businesses, $100,000, that it's relatively easy to actually get into business for $100,000. From day one, these types of people that are on $50,000 can increase their wages to 60, 70, and potentially more with tax benefits. And then when they exit, touch wood, if they build equity in that business, even if they only increase it 30%, they're going to be coming out with a nice chunk of capital gains tax-free money. And if you're 55 or 60 and you come out with an extra $100,000, as opposed to putting the tools down and winding the lease down, it makes a significant difference to people's lives. Do you know how long it would take someone to save $100,000 on a 50 grand wage? You would never do it. Impossible.
But then on the other hand, you've got the guy who is a tradie. He's the only person in the business. It's called Bill Smith Limited. And he comes in and says, right, I want to sell my business for $300,000. And you sit there and go, well, unless you're a builder and unless your name is Bill Smith and he works for one client, right? And
do you mean I can't sell myself?
Yeah, well, if it's transferable, absolutely. But there are some people who actually come in and say, well, hey, what's the value of my business? And we sit there and say, well, what's the value of the van? So, I mean, there are, every case needs to be looked at individually to say, well, okay, someone will buy your business, but what's transferable to the new owner?
One of the biggest things that the business community, and I'm including accountants and lawyers and advisors, get very confused on is the fact that, and I'm going to use Paul as an example. Now, Paul would be, and his group would be selling businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, and they might be achieving multiples of 3-4 times EBIT, okay? Our business here sells businesses for multiples averaging at 8 to 10 times EBIT, which sounds crazy. And a lot of people don't understand the fact, the difference between buying yourself a job and buying yourself an established business. They are very, very different animals. And the reason people pay 8 to 10 times EBIT is because it's lifestyle. It's giving them tax advantages. It's giving them some ability to build equity in their life and move ahead and be the boss. And that's why they buy it. But people buying businesses for return on investment and for financial reasons will look at it very, very differently. So, I'm really keen about making sure the market clearly understands the difference and what multiples are achieved and why people pay prices that they do to buy themselves a job.
Okay, fantastic. It is 4 o'clock. we could have probably spent another hour chatting about this. And I think one day soon, we're all going to get to give over a beer and have a discussion. I think it'll be way more fun having this over a beer or two. But Steve and Paul, thank you so much for coming and joining us and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
For everyone who joined us, thank you. For the people who will be watching the replay, thank you so much for spending the time. As usual,
just before you sign out, because today we're supposed to draw who will win the date box, if you recall.
Oh, is it today? Is it?
Yeah, it is today, and I've prepared. So, gentlemen, just in case if you didn't know, we have a draw for a date box.
Perfect present for you,
Yeah.
Paul and Steve. Perfect present
these are
for
the
your
names.
wives.
We have to choose a number. I'm not sure how. So I don't know.
I want the middle one. I don't know who it is, but I want the middle one.
This one here?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
That's how we draw it.
Okay, it's Jacinda Lynn. So we'll put it up on Facebook.
Fantastic, awesome. All right,
Nice.
thank you so
guys,
much.
If you don't know what a date box is, we had a guest on last week, Anel, who's producing date boxes that you can order online. Appears and you can put your own date night in a box, basically.
Yeah, so it's completely mystery. So it's a mystery date box, and you get kind of notifications on what you need to prepare for the night. And it's actually suggested for the gentlemen to purchase it for their ladies. And
from Anel's perspective, you know, a month ago she was in the tourism and travel agents business and got made redundant. So.
She started doing business, yeah.
Perfect. So Jacinda, well done. Congratulations. The box is going to come your way. And Paul and Steve, thank you so much for joining us, as well as all the participants. And
if we all do meet up for a beer, Paul's buying, okay? Is that fair enough?
Finally, you disagreed.
I'm pretty sure Paul said no problem. So
he must have a few beers going on.
Yeah. But for all those that do need business advice or help before selling.
Yeah, but I think Paul was saying the same as part of the business community. So people like Paul and I, as selling and buying businesses involved there, we're always here for advice. I have no qualms whatsoever about talking to anybody, even if it's a private sale. If people want to pick up the phone and have a yarn, just give them our details.
Absolutely.
They will go out in the email. Thank you so much, Paul and Steve.
All right, take care, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.